You can't actually listen to the Omega. You just get enveloped in the way it makes you feel. What my sound preferences are. I like bass. And if it can have quantity and quality, yeah, I'm rocking it. Especially mid bass. I like the slam over the sub bass rumble. I like my mids super clean. Not a big fan of overly colored, overly thick, overly warm mids. Not a big fan of that. And highs that are very sweet and seem to be able to keep up without ever being overbearing or in your face. So the tuning switch off, you just get the most amazing bass you will ever hear in your life. Basically. But listening to the Omega, I can honestly say that whatever special voodoo magic mojo shit going on with the bass venting technology, this is the best bass I have ever heard. Full stop, period. The Omega gives you a remarkable connection to the music that I find is very, very rare. I haven't seen another implementation with a tuning switch in the mid-range that did what the Omega does in such a special way. Nuances, that is micro details So I don't think it really matters if you're a stagehound, a bass head, a vocal-centric mid-lover, a tweaker, a casual music lover, a timbre and tonality snob. The Omega has you covered. Hello. Today's video is a very special one and close to my heart, so I hope I come across as very sincere, and this is truly how I felt. The other day I made a comment on one of my other videos that I was going to do this review straight from the cuff, no notes, but I was lying to myself. Many weeks later, I have 20 pages of notes, so please bear with me. And in this review, I'm going to be time-stamping it, like always, and this is how it's going to be broken down for you. So first part will be the specifications, then second part will be the stock look and the cable and accessories that come with it. I'm going to talk about how much it is, $2,699, done. There's Kilobuck, and then there's Summit Fi. That's going to be a section. And then I'm going to break it down with some tracks. And in these tracks, what I'm going to try and do is hopefully bring across the points that I want to make on why I think this set is so very, very special. Moonchild, it's going to talk about 3D stage and placement. Parashoot, I'm going to talk about the bass. RAKIN, the live performance and the emotional connection you get from this set. Over the Rainbow, mid-range and the tuning switches and how that is affected and implemented. Bubbles, want to talk about tonality and spaciousness. Life goes on. Now I'm going to be talking about some of the tuning switch changes, the up settings specifically. Believer, I'm going to talk about highs and the EST implementation that is solely used for treble, which is unique. Some observations, and that'll lead into the conclusion, and I'll finally wrap this up. So this will be a longer video, and deservingly so. First of all, let's talk about what this is and who this is. So Alpha Omega. This is a Malaysian company, and it's run by Clement and his team. It is a boutique operation, very much like Fat Frequency, and I'm going to use one of the comparisons later in this video as well. So, jumping into this, let's talk about some specifications first of all. One 10mm beryllium driver. 4 Sonyon balanced armature drivers, 4 Sonyon electrostatic drivers, 6-way passive crossover network. And this is some of the uniqueness that I want to make sure that you get. There's one dynamic driver used for the sub bass. Then there is the composite Sonyon balanced armature for the bass. 1 Sonyon BA for the mids and 2 Sonyon BAs for the mids and mid-highs. Then there's 2 Sonyon electrostatic drivers used exclusively for the highs and 2 more used for the ultra highs. And I'm going to go more into depth. I have never heard a set that used solely electrostatic drivers for the top end. It's typically always accompanied by balanced armatures, and I'm going to go into that in some depth as well. Let's add one more feature to this IM, which is the fact that it has 3 tuning switches. Now, these tuning switches affect in part or in combination solely the sub bass, or the mid-range, the entire mid-range. And I'll show you a graph of that too. This is done differently than I've seen another IM do tuning switches. And then lastly, the third switch is for treble. And I'll touch base again later in this review about how that changes, and in some tracks, I'll explain a little bit more about what happens when you flick that switch. I will show you my set. My set is not going to be your set. My set is this custom set with Tone Deaf Monk's blue and red signature looks. And Clement did a amazing job. He is the artist on this, and if you look through his picture galleries, you will see some absolutely stunning. He's an artist. I called him that legitimately. You'll see mine on a $25 Yangtze Spidey cable. But most of my impressions were definitely done on the DD Hi-Fi Nix Pro cable. Fantastic cable and it paired extremely well for details and resolution. And when I switched this over to the up position, and I'll talk about that, this synergy-wise paired fantastically. Just jumping into one more thing, and that's sources. And I think that is always a conversation reviewers should have with you to help you understand where they came or how they got their conclusions. So for me, desktop stack. This definitely deserves the best of what you have. And for me, that is the Gishelli Labs J2 loaded up with Sparco's Pro SS2590 op amps. And that's then connected to the topping A90D discrete amp through DD Hi-Fi cables as well. So that was my main stack. And then I got in an Ibasso DC Elite. And oh my, I'll do a full review on that, but just say that that is a device. So I use my Onyx XM5 as the transport. I'll just pull up a picture. The DC Elite has my DAC, and my amp is going to be the X-Duo XD05 Pro. That was my chain. And again, thank you to DD Hi-Fi for the interconnects, which I absolutely love. I don't want to make this an infomercial, but they work well for me, and they sound great. So anyway, moving on this Omega review. Okay, so the Omega is going to come in this unassuming black box. And I do really like the fact that nothing is too overdone. Everything really kind of went into the IM, which I appreciate, but no little details were left too untouched. Inside of this black little box, you get your case, and your IMs will sit in there. In the bottom has one of those little drawers with some basic ear tips. None of that really mattered to me. The case is quite nice. It is the Alpha Omega branded leather little puck style case, big enough to put your IMs in. The production version of this IM will come with an Astral Acoustics matching purple cable. Here is the picture of what the configuration will be of the Omega in its purple fish scale look. Absolutely stunning. And the cable matches not just looks, but sonically as well, because you know Clement didn't leave any stone unturned. Let us talk about some music. Jumping right into this. And this is how I want to explain not just how the Omega sounds, but some of the things that are going on with it that is done differently and how that affects this IM. Okay, first up, Moonchild by King Crimson. This 12-minute plus track will blow your mind. Put it on your test playlist. For 3D stage, this is how it sounded to me. There are many things going on randomly and all over the place in 3D spatial awareness. It starts off with vocals in front of you and slightly off to the right. You have music, you have guitars playing to the extreme left and right at the opening. And at 27 seconds, you get the triangle, ding, 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 and it hits left to right and more forward of the vocals. And the left triangle you can clearly pick out is lower than someone holding up the right triangle. That was one observation I made as my little brain was trying to wrap my head around the information that was being received. So during this 12-minute plus track, all the instruments play, the drums kick in, guitars, and they're all playing at different depths and different heights. It's all incredibly realistic. It's like nothing I have ever heard before. Every note really just has its own space. And the most nuanced musical replay I have yet to experience. That's what the Omega did. To top that off, the realism of how natural and real sounding every instrument played back was truly mesmerizing. It's a standout replay on a very well recorded track. Now, all of my music is done either with Tidal, FLAC files, or local on my DAPs with DSD files. So, thought I'd mention that. Parashoot by Shimza and Rachel Chinori. Bottom M thump. I'm going to talk about your bottom. Well, only way to describe this track on the Omega is emotionally powerful bass texture. It's deep. It's penetrating into your skull. Visceral beats. So low and so very well controlled and textured. On reference tuning, this is not, for me, considered bass head level bass. On the bass switch, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. Yeah. Mids and highs can keep up still. And that's why I don't think on the reference tuning this is a bass head level tuning. Because the mids and highs are very balanced and can easily keep up with the bass. Though you flick on that bass switch, and if you're in the mood for some bass, it's an hour of that is, for me, intense. It's certainly fun for a quick romp or when you're down for some hip-hop or some rap. Then you flick the switch. And when you hit that dial, I'm talking about volume dial here, you can get seriously punished with next level bass if you flick that switch. On the tuning switch off, you just get the most amazing bass you will ever hear in your life, tastefully done. Clement wanted to keep some of the venting tech private, as you can respect. But listening to the Omega, I can honestly say that whatever special voodoo magic mojo shit's going on with the bass venting technology, this is the best bass I have ever heard. Full stop, period. And when I'm talking about bass, it's not just I want quality over quantity. It's nice to have both, like in my intro, and yeah, absolutely hits that mark, no problem. But let's switch gears here. Let's talk about let's talk RAKIN. And this is a track by in a live version from Dead Can Dance, and I use this track for special. How does it make me feel on stage? Okay. On this track, if you're lucky, you can pick out 3 sets of mics in this recording. 1, the direct mics that were used to pick up the instruments. 2, there's stage mics from the monitors. And 3, there is stadium mics. The way this track was recorded and mixed, the vocals are all done in a way that you pick up the natural reverb of the venue. The instrumentals come through with the direct mics, and you get additional input from the stadium mics. Only the very, very best in-ear monitors can truly give you an awe-inspiring sense of the venue. And this recording with the Omega is I think the only third IM I have ever heard that pulled it off. The Plunge Audio Unity, the Fat Frequency Grand Maestro, and now the Omega. You are 100 feet from the stage, looking up, and you are sitting, and I am sitting, right of the stage. That's what the mental picture I got transported into this venue. The sense of realism and the ability to transport you, really, I like that word because that's how it makes you feel, that you're at the concert. And all the emotions, the excitement of a live performance really comes through and instills that in you through the replay of this track from the Omega. The Omega gives you a remarkable connection to the music that I find is very, very rare. Live in Europe, Over the Rainbow by Melody Gardot. So on this track, I am listening to Miss Gardot's vocal tonality. I am listening for her guitar to have enough note weight. And does the IM have bass bleed to affect the female vocals? Because that happens with this track, because she has a bit of a deeper, huskier voice in this recording. And does it make them too thick, her vocals? And the answer to that is no. And this is down, down, down reference tuning here. So the Omega achieved an absolute perfect balance. The guitar not only has the pitch perfect sound, but her vocals sound perfectly natural. And has that smoky, alluring, kind of mesmerizing performance sound that you would expect, that I know that this track is produced by. Now, switching gears, or switching switches, I should say, you put the middle switch on, and this is the mid-range switch. And here I want to talk about how that affects the overall tuning and the effects it has on the playback. So with the switch off, let's go take a step back here. The tuning on the Omega has I'm going to talk about from the lowest octaves, and because this is going to affect the rest of everything else. So it has a crack level addictive personality where it just keeps getting you enough bass to feed your habit, but not enough to overwhelm you, and makes you want more, because the bass shelf is so well controlled below 180 hertz, and most of the gain and the elevation is done in the sub bass area frequencies. The mids stay incredibly clean and uncolored. There is also the perfect amount of mid bass, also from the Sonyan balanced armature composite driver, in addition to the beryllium dynamic driver, to give you the right amount of weight to vocals, and especially instrumental like the guitar, and not in this track, but piano as well, right? Piano and cello that I find not easy to do. Now, with the middle switch flicked on. What changes is the stage opens up a bit more. And here is a graph of just the tuning switch with the mid-range. And you can see that it affects the entire mid-range, not just one little portion of it. I haven't seen another implementation like this so well done. Now, on paper, it's actually very subtle, but in real world, real in ears, it actually makes quite a bit of difference. So the stage opens up a bit more, but what was the most notable change was how lovely the bass just took a step back, as did the highs, just a smidge, and allowed the entire mid-range to just open up and come forward front and center. So for you that love that kind of vocal and a little bit more mid-centric personality in your IMs, the Omega can do that as well. For vocal tracks, what a treat. It was very interesting with this tuning that the timbre and the tonality of everything, it did not change much. And I was thinking that it would, was the guitar going to lose some of the weight to it and lose the tonality of the instrumental and just focus in on the vocals and amplify that? Well, yes, it did amplify the vocals, but again, the guitar didn't lose too much in its timbre and tonality to make it sound unnatural. In fact, everything just kind of bumped up into the organicness of the playback. It's just that the whole mid-range just becomes a little bit more forward in the mix. The way Clement and his team used the mid-switch was done in such a true craftsman style way that they could achieve the desired effect without messing up anything else. As I'll said it again, I haven't seen another implementation with a tuning switch in the mid-range that did what the Omega does in such a special way. Let's blow some bubbles by Yoshi Horikawa. I'm listening for spatial clues and layering. The Omega is an extremely rare gem. The combination of playing back this track with every ball drop, you can hear the different size, the density, it's easily discernible. With perfect weight and pitch. I encourage you to listen to this track where this gentleman is known for using natural instruments and objects like balls and in his recordings. So here's an example. So you could hear the ping pong ball that have the same exact sound as if you were listening to a Korean high-level intensity tabletop match. That same sound, that twang of the ball being hit. And you can hear larger balls bounce. And you can clearly picture in your mind that a basketball sound, what a basketball sound makes when it's being bounced and how the air inside it is compressing and expanding. You can pick that up. That is nuances. That is micro details. That is a beautiful thing. But what might blow your mind, my little mind, is how defined the placement each ball is placed in a 3D stage, with clear designation of various depths and heights within your headspace. And these things are going on. And let me make another point, which is, again, I find very rare. So not only that, you can hear the placement in the stage. Every note that is played, ball drop, ping, whatever, is allowed to finish its energy, and the Omega will layer that next note over top and allow that previous note to finish to its natural conclusion. And so on, over and over again, with standout micro details, incredible resolution, and perfect tonality. I'm talking top tier stuff here, and that is exactly what I mean by that. Now, Life Goes On by the Ezra Collective. This is some funky jazz. Down, down, down switches. Reference tuning. Deep bass. Super clean vocals. And instruments that sound wonderful. They sound natural in their tonality. If I'm struggling to convey how very good they sound, I apologize. But they sound exactly, in my mind, how they should sound. I've been to enough concerts in my life and live venues to think I have a very good idea. Now, let's talk up, up, up. This is the all three tuning switches up. Here, it adds in some more mid-bass into the mix, just enough for more attack to make the Omega a supreme IM for me. It was that little extra that I wanted from the reference tuning, and I may have overlooked this if not for Leonard from Hi-Fi Guides Forum and his post. So thank you for that. Flicking those three switches, listening to it, talking to Clement about the changes, and him recognizing what I was hearing is also what actually happens to him, for him as well. That was his intent. Let's go to another one. Believer by Vitamin String Quartet. And I'm using these tracks specifically to help convey what I'm hearing. I want to talk to you about the treble. The Omega is unique, not because it uses 4 EST drivers from Sonyan, but its application in this, and I'm going to spend a bit of time on here. So most IMs, and I made this comment to Clement, I said, well, how do you do it without the BAs? A lot of IMs, in hybrids especially, use the balance armatures to at least do the heavy lifting in treble, where the Omega does not. It has been observed that ESTs don't produce that much output volume, and you typically need to use the BAs to get the high-end energy that you need, especially if you have an IM like this that has this much of a bass shelf and quite a bit of ear gain into the pinna region. And in this application, Clement and his team used 4 Sonyan BAs, 2 for the highs, or the upper mids and highs, and 2 for the ultra highs. See, with a track like this, the strings, when you're listening to the Omega, it's evident that whatever magic Clement applied to his formula, it works, and it works really, really well. I think it makes the Omega sound different than I've heard any other treble presentation exclusively using ESTs. And I know he spent a great amount of time. And I talked to him about it, and so I wanted to share a bit about that as well. I love ESTs because for me, they produce the upper harmonics in a very special way. You get all the special sparklies and twinklies, but I think with an extra dose of refinement and shimmer that I find BAs really can't produce the same way. And I don't find that they can produce treble as musically and organically as an EST driver implemented correctly. There is some exceptions, of course, but very, very rare. If you're a string lover like me and you want to hear such a natural replay, with kind of a really fine, nuanced precision, and a huge dose of pitch-perfect musicality. You want to listen to the Omega with strings, it'll be a huge treat. Some things Clement wanted to keep secret and not divulge, again, too much about his tradecraft. But one thing is really audibly clear, is that no part of the Omega's tuning was left unpolished. And I know that he spent a great amount of time on the Omega to polish it and make it sound a more resolving and refined and a clear upgrade to the raw. So after speaking to Clement about why and his team spent so much time on the EST implementation and the challenges and advantages of using this driver in this way. So here's a few of our takeaways from our conversation. And one was the use of 4 EST drivers. Why was that done? Well, one, it's easier to drive over using just 2, as was the implementation in the raw. So you do get more energy. You get more output. But also using a tailored crossover network, 2 ESTs could be used for the highs and 2 more could be used for the ultra highs, lending to the Omega's uncanny ability to giving you a greater sense of air and separation. Clement told me a big challenge and the reason why most IAMs use BAs to do the heavy lifting, as I suspected, for the trouble, that had to do with that EST drivers, by their nature, can sound harsh. And piercing into the lower treble region, especially around the 2 to 3K area, where the usable frequency of this particular kind of driver starts working. So this is where now Clement and his team spent their most amount of time, and this had to do with the smoothing out of this region with the use of cross-feed mechanisms and targeted crossovers. They were able to tame down the mids and the upper highs drivers and give them a warmer timbre while maintaining that special sauce ESTs do. Okay, a couple observations before I jump into, and this will lead into my long-winded conclusion. Number 1, the Omega sounds fantastic on low volumes. So one of the things that should be talked about more is at what volumes do you listen to your gear? Because as IAMs as you turn up the volume dial, a lot of them scale differently. A Fool Explorer was a perfect example of that. Without turning it up, you don't get what makes that IAM special. So when I'm listening to the Omega, whether I'm just at low volumes or medium volumes, or if I decide to turn it up, it does scale up, but not in intensity only. It doesn't actually perform better. Even the ESTs come through super clean and details, even at low volumes. And that's a really good point that I'd like to make. So you don't need to feed it a ton of power to sound balanced and natural. On low volumes, you get still that full wicked bass all the way up to the highest notes. Again, and as you dial up, it just scales up in volume and not tonality. And not many IAMs get it correct, and certainly not this correct. Number 2, the nozzles. Now, mine may have been a pre-production version, but the nozzles are very large. I think I took a thing, it's like 6.8 millimeters, and I have a sneaking suspicion it'll be a little bit less on the production version, but I had a challenge with ear tips, and because of that. So ear tips are going to play a massive part in any IM that you use. And for me, I went through my entire gamut of ear tips, and weirdly enough, I came up with an ear tip that I haven't used in a long time because they don't work typically for me for some stuff. And this was the TRI ear tip, wide bore. It allows a full open. You can see all 4 tubes in there. And it doesn't close off, so stage is fantastic. And I get a terrific seal and fitment. Very comfortable for me, even with that large size nozzle. To that point, also, this is a very large IM. For me, I have medium large ears, so but I have no problem with fitment. The shell shape is, again, kind of that semi-custom, and when they go in, I get very good isolation. Super comfortable. So that's important too. I mean, you're going to spend $2,700 on an IM. You're going to want to know that it doesn't have some kind of wacky shell or wacky nozzle. Everything is just done, in my opinion, really well, and it should work for the majority of most people. But I wanted to make that point as well. So, third observation here, not only do you get a perfectly tuned IM with reference settings, with all switches off, and I'm going to show you that as well. So there's your 3 normal, you see, tuning switches, right? 1, 2, 3, bass, mid-range, and treble. You get pinnacle level replay, an incredibly musical and reference level with technical details and dynamics. And that was that when I was listening to this, it's like, not only does it have all those other things, it sounds incredibly musical and not dry, not boring, incredibly engaging, and you just get lost in the music. This was a really hard review because you can't actually listen to the Omega. You just get enveloped in the way it makes you feel. There's only 2 other IMs truly that had implemented tuning switches or some kind of tuning that was executed, in my opinion, phenomenally well. And one was the Oravetti OH700 VB. With that tuning switch on the top, and to a limited ability, of course. Then there was the Fat Frequency Grand Maestro, a very, very special IM. And it's NOA module, so it had 2 ways to adjust its tuning. The vocal switch and the NOA modules, which are like 64 audio, they are pressure relieving, so they do affect the bottom end frequency response as well. That IM is also $4,000 worth of awesome. That leads me into this conclusion. I have been blessed with good friends in our Canadian Canucks Audioholics Anonymous group. Bennett Kelly, Kevin Davies, Kyle Parker, all have been my little voice of reason when I want to take my reviews too spicy. It doesn't always work, as some of my fruit porn still slips in once in a while. U12 video. But I like to keep things fun, keep them down to earth. And you see my slogan, which is now keeping it fun, keeping it real. And I'm going to continue to do that, being me, the monk. And part of the Canucks Audioholics Anonymous group, I also get to borrow some gear that we all own or have been provided from various sources, and as such, I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to listen to some top-tier gear and IAMs. Between the CAA and some other good friends, Seekin, Dennis, Simon, and Jim, I thank you as well. I have tried some bangers and some flops from other brands like Empire Ears, from Plunge Audio, Canera, Theaudio, Panon, Tanzio Mirai, and Fat Frequency, just to name a few. And so here is my point that I'm trying to make. Top tier gear has much greater license to experiment on different tunings, on custom or in-house developed drivers, or the technology that's used in their releases. This takes a much greater amount of their time and resources to develop and to tune gear with their desired vision. As you would expect from smaller boutique brands such as Alpha, Omega, and Fat Frequency that are coming out of countries like Singapore and Malaysia. These companies get to take their time and only release IMs when they're polished, when they're finished, when they're ready for you to hear them, and not pump out a bi-weekly Pokemon. That is kind of the big difference between Kilo Buck stuff, Summit Hi-Fi. It really is. This makes the release schedule slow, and really because you don't have a steady source of income, the costing is what it is in order for them just to keep doing what they love doing. It's a good point to make. Many people see $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, $8,000 sets and go, I only see the price and not what went into the creation of these sets. Now, I might sound like I am trying to justify spending more than you have may spent on your first few cars, and in a way, I certainly am. But here's my takeaway with the Omega. Someone on HeadFi commented that there was one brand that you could trust and blind buy a pricey IM, Alpha Omega would be that company. And I would like to parrot that sentiment for sure. The value equation to sound performance and enjoyment. I think not only is the Omega extremely competitive, it's honestly second to none. I feel when it comes to a comparison, now I can't do a direct comparison to the Fat Frequency Grand Maestro, and I don't want to. I don't go off of memory. That's not what I do. But just comparing that to a $4,000 IM, I think the Omega is a lot more versatile, and not only with its 3 tuning switches that actually can make an audible real world difference in 3 separate areas or in a combination to fine tune to your preferences. That makes it more versatile than a much more expensive IAM, and a better all-rounder with top tier performance still. No compromises at a fraction of the price for the Grand Maestro. I think whether you get your toes wet with the $699 Tribrid Raw, or you step up and go full hog on the Omega, you can expect and receive a musical treat for your ears. Just to summarize what you would get for $2,699. Well, bass like no other. Deep, powerful, organic sounding low notes with depth, with texture, very nice decay, performed by not only a wonderful, very high quality beryllium dynamic driver, but also with Sonyan's best composite BA drivers to give you the best of both worlds. BAs known for their fast speediness, but maybe not their texture and decay. But you do kind of want that in certain applications and in certain music or genres. And you get it. And not only do you get it delivered 3 ways. Okay, 1, with the reference tuning, you get balanced and present bass, but not overdone or saturated to color the mids in any way. Perfectly executed tuning. Number 2, you get the bass boosted version with the tuning switch for bass head levels of boom. And number 3, with the up, up, up settings with all 3 switches on, you get bass in a little bit warmer tonality down below and more mid-bass slam for a faster attack. Maybe a smidge little bass bleed into the mids with a hint of colorization. My absolute favorite. Now let's talk about the mids, done solely by Sonyan balanced armatures. Again, magic recipe for me. For mids, the most important part of the entire music spectrum, 80% of the music is done here. They don't get any better. Smooth, organic, and most importantly, for me, pitch perfect timbre and tonality. Again, delivered 3 ways. Reference tuning, down, down, down switches, gives you a extremely musical presentation in the mids. Clean, clear, with great details, great resolution. Second, flick that mid switch up, pushes bass down just a tad while brilliantly, gently boosting the entire mid-range to offer you a vocal kind of instrumental treat and let you focus your attention on a bigger stage and engulf you in some of the best vocals you will hear. 3, up, up, up. With those switches, you're getting presented a slightly warmer tones while maintaining that enchanting, deep, organic bass and all that those magical ESTs are putting out. Now, highs, like no other. ESTs done differently and implemented to perfection. If you always thought using ESTs were a gimmick or didn't really add anything to the mix in a very special way, the Omega will change your mind. And don't forget the treble switch that honestly works. The Omega really has something for everyone. So I don't think it really matters if you're a stagehound, a basshead, a vocal-centric mid-lover, a tweaker, a casual music lover, a timbre and tonality snob. The Omega has you covered. $26.99 is a SWAC of money. But for what you get, I don't think it can be beat. Top-tier technical performance, details, resolution, competing and outperforming in some cases Summit Fi gear, asking much more money. Accessories that complement the Omega, but sonically are also paired to enhance the tuning. Boutique, handmade craftsmanship made by artists like Clement. I want to thank you for watching my Omega infomercial. No, seriously. I just wanted to bring awareness to Alpha Omega and the brand. And I truly believe that this is one you should consider an endgame. If you're looking to invest in an endgame IM, I think you could comfortably, safely go with the Omega and live happily ever after. And if your mood changes, flick the switch. I want to thank Clement from the bottom of my heart for trusting me, and for me trusting me to actually put my money where my mouth is. And I appreciate getting a discount on this IM and blind buying it and trusting my own instincts with this IM. And I'm sure happy, I'm sure glad that I did. If there's one IM in my reviewing, in all my years in audio, and all this other gear that I have listened to, I've never once thought, for me, the only IM that I ever thought for me that I would save up my money and buy was the Fat Frequency Grand Maestro. But at $4,000, it is more than I'm comfortable spending. At $2,700 for the Alpha Omega, if you can save up for that, I think it's money well spent. It's the first IM that I think that is truly worth the Summit 5 price, in my opinion. Thank you for watching.